So this is definitely going to be an interesting one, I gotta say. This man has said a lot of interesting things over the years, well before like anything recent, like with Cat Williams and all that jazz. And I really actually very vividly remember the whole thing with Terrance Howard and Iron Man, because I saw the first Iron Man. It was part of my generation, what have you. And I saw the second Iron Man, and I do love Don Cheadle as an actor, or he has a good skill, but I did think it was super strange where was Terrance, and he is an awesome actor also. I mean, look at Crash. And I do also remember them saying he was hard to work with, and this, that, and the other. So there's so many they've been saying this about. With that said, I was surprised to see him in the wig. I didn't know if it was a spoof at first. I'm new to this Daphne Wyn Straight Talk, but I like the title. Let's see what they have to say.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Daphne Wyn. I am so excited to give you another exclusive one-on-one interview with the one and only Terrance D. Howard. I didn't say the whole middle name.
I like it though.
You like it?
I like Deshaun.
Deshaun. I like Deshaun too.
Mama gave me Deshaun.
She did. That's awesome. Because you're special.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
I was on a little bus.
Not the short one, though.
I was on a short bus.
Not the short little
Yeah,
bus?
when I was in second grade, because I was saying, wow, that's the prettiest color blue I've ever heard. And the teacher was like, you can't, colors don't have. So I was like, yes, they do. She's like, no, they don't. And they ended up sending me to a remedial school for about a year. And I was just like, nah. The people that were there were so incredible, the kids, because they saw things differently.
Right, yeah.
But what it turned out is I had, everyone's born with synesthesia. And that's just the ability to have more than one stimuli can affect multiple receptors.
Right.
And so sound or color will have a sound, or shapes will have a taste. All of those things, and every child is born with it.
Right.
The problem is, the first thing a kid wants to do,
Pause. Okay. The problem is that every child, like, we're all born with all of these innate gifts that we have. However, that's why those formative years are so very formative. Where are we sent right off to school, indoctrinated there, television programming, etc. Point being, we are taught that all those gifts are not possible, and we'd be like X-Men mutants otherwise.
Wants to put things in his mouth because he has an idea or an expectation of what that's supposed to taste like, and that informs him. But when we don't allow them to put things in their mouth, and we don't talk to them about the relationship,
when we don't allow folks to have experiences and go through life and learn themselves, how they ever gonna really learn?
Between light and color, or sound and tone, and matter and shape, it dies as a result of atrophy. But everyone has that ability to where if they see.
And that atrophy has been majorly manipulated. You want to talk about something that's been atrophied? I never even thought about it like that. I only know the word from having a degree in an AS in medical assisting, but that's a good word for it.
Color, they should like the color blue is like the key of G to me, or the color
key of G.
Yeah,
what does the key of G sound like?
The key of G,
because I know you're musically inclined, so let me pull it out of you real quick.
It's like 192 hertz.
Wow. Okay.
That's at a low register.
Yeah. So I know that you have this passion for the insight and the revelation that you've been given about an array of things, from geometry to physics to science. But I want to backtrack really quickly.
I want to backtrack just briefly. I'm not going to say that Terrance is not enlightened and a gifted and a unique individual man, because he is, with many talents and skills. However, what she just said, we all have those gifts. That was the point I was just making. And all of those things, not everything she said is a gift that you already have, but if you do the right research and put the action and effort in, all of this information is available, which is why it gets so annoying for certain people that are trying to spread truth and awareness for so many years. Whew, it's tough. Okay, but we keep on.
Because I know most people want to hear a couple things about what you're doing with the wig while we're here. We're on set.
This ain't no wig.
In Atlanta.
But wait, let me backtrack. She says, and acts like she's about to ask a serious question. Is like, so the wig, why you got a wig on for?
That's your hair. That's what your hair is. Physics to science. But I want to backtrack really quickly because I know most people want to hear a couple things about what you're doing with the wig. The insight and the revelation that you've been given about an array of things, from geometry to physics to
geometry, you learn physics, you learn
science.
Well, anybody could be a scientist. Honestly, you just herb. You just herb to the left. You just herb to the right. Observe and report. Maybe they need to herb more.
But I want to backtrack
because all of those things are amazing. But what the people really want to know is what's up with that wiggy diggy? Hey, the fuck?
Really quickly, because I know most people want to hear a couple things about what you're doing.
Not to knock her, because I mean she does have to ask what the people want to know, but it's just so superficial. Okay.
With the wig, while we're here, we're on set.
This ain't no wig.
In Atlanta. That's your hair. That's what your hair is.
This Cadillac Richie's hair. This Cadillac.
That's exactly what I was thinking, right?
Yeah, no, we're doing the film, and I thank you guys for coming here to set.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Taking the time. It's me. It's Kevin Hart, Don Cheeto, Sam.
Sirens now went on like Kevin Hart. Oh Lord.
Jackson, myself, and a number of incredible actors. But we're doing a thing called Fight Night, and it's the night that Muhammad Ali fought Jerry Quarry. You know, and there's a little robbery that takes place.
There's a little robbery.
Just a little.
Who's on the robbery side?
I don't.
It makes me think of Bob Dylan and Reuben Charisse Carter.
No.
Somebody with a wig on.
Bad people. Everybody got a wig on. Everybody got a wig on.
In this day and age, that is so mother effing true. In 2017, in the fall, I went to my last job actually that I had, and on my team I was minority white girl, and I had no idea like how fake everybody's hair was. It's for all peoples if you want it to be.
So what's your character's name in this movie?
It's Cadillac Richie.
Cadillac Richie.
Yeah.
Okay, Cadillac Richie.
Yeah, Cadillac like that.
How is this different from any of your other characters you played?
I think Cadillac is a bit of a sociopath.
Oh, wow.
I've only played a sociopath, I think, once in a movie called with Andre 3000, Idlewild.
I freaking loved. Are they about to give us an ad? Probably. I love Idlewild. I love Outcast. I love Andre 3000. Idlewild is the last project that they did, but it was a good movie. I have a feeling they're about to commercial us. Nope.
You see, I've watched you for a long time, Spence. And you taught me that when opportunity knocks, you said the smart man answers. See, that was some really good advice. That was the closest I got to a social.
Great movie. You should check it out, as well as the band Outcast. Outkast. For real.
Path, you know. But Cadillac is a little more fun.
Okay.
A little more fun.
What was that preparation like preparing, because I've heard you say a couple of things in other interviews, and I want to ask you about that because I did some acting and studying acting, and you said something I've never really heard a lot of actors say about the process of acting. And you said that sometimes when you walk off, they walk off with your clothes.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
I kind of can. He don't mean well, he might mean physical clothes, but look at me always answering for everybody. I understand. I understand, don't you know? No, I do though, because he means to like just drop being that character.
Well,
I guess anyway.
as an actor, as you're more like a medium.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you
well
really
said.
get there, you go into this zone and you really
Something else comes over you and you are just a vessel and it's being worked through you for sure.
divorce yourself of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you just become a garment that something else puts on. Now,
Right.
a lot of people sit up there and do impersonations of other folks,
Mm-hmm.
instead of allowing that spirit, but I sit up and I'll pray for a little bit and go in a dark place, go in a bathroom, turn.
Going in a dark place is very key. It's nice that he said that. William Donahue, go look him up. He's passed on now, but man was ahead of his time. If you're into meditation and opening your pineal gland and your third eye, you need to be in the dark, legit. I mean, you can sit and meditate at the beach in the sun all day, but for that opening to awaken and the light to come in, you have to be in the dark.
Off the lights, look in the mirror,
So, 15 seconds.
impersonations of other folks, instead of allowing that spirit, but I sit up and I'll pray for a little bit and go in a dark place, go in a bathroom, turn off the lights, look in the mirror.
She's saying, like she knows what the hell he's talking about. I don't think she do.
We'll have the light on at first, and then after 1 minute, turn the light off, and and search until you see your own glow, your own aura, and then you watch it change.
Wow.
And it's a scary thing because you'll feel like some hands are on you,
Wow.
and you lose a little bit of control of what you're doing. But if you stay with it, you'll be inhabited by something, and then you walk out, and the character's
Wow.
with you, and you got to know how to say goodbye to it.
I'm hoping that would be your higher self, but he's leaving it open to more interpretation for that, I would say.
Right.
If you really want to
Yeah,
get there.
right, yeah.
A lot of people are afraid, to empty themselves and be filled up with something else. But, as an
You get
actor,
lost,
you're an
maybe?
emotional prostitute.
Wow.
You
Well
put
said.
on whatever you need for the John. You're turning a trick. You're turning an emotional trick.
Wow.
And it's nothing
Yeah.
more glorious
Yeah.
than that.
Okay. So how do you balance the separation of who you really are? Or are they similar?
No. You got to remember, we've been here since the very beginning. There is no good or bad. It's just your perspective that you're sitting from. Is it beneficial for everyone around, or is it not? There's something that has to build up, and there's something that needs to tear it down. What we call the tearing of it down, we call it evil or bad, but that's the process of magnetism or radiation. Radiation tears apart that which was concentrically brought together through electric potential and electric force. Electricity is always seeking a higher pressure condition, trying to get to the center of the apex, whereas magnetism is spinning southwestern, trying to get out. But the magnetism is necessary because unless it broke apart that which was collected together, you would never have any new material to rebuild again. And that's the breathing in and the breathing out of universal purpose. Now, so at the end of the day, since the Creator made all things and everything came from the Creator,
Right.
there is nothing that is bad except how you are perceiving it, and whether it's beneficial to everyone around you, because something needs to tear things apart. And if you want to be on the building side of it, then you have a sustainable relationship with the universe, because the universe loves to rebuild, but it also needs to tear apart at the same time.
Right, and I often say that, we do live in a world of duality, so it keeps equilibrium. When you mention creator and universe, can you clarify who you consider the creator to be?
Oh, well, I don't consider the creator to be any of the names that have been personified upon it, because if you think as above, so below, and everything in the universe has an equal and opposite mate, even in our chemistry, every element has an equal and opposite mate, like the opposite mate of oxygen is a +2, and a -2 within that same octave is beryllium. If oxygen is bonded with any other element, the moment that it comes in contact with beryllium, it will break that other bond and immediately bond to beryllium, because it's its equal and opposite mate. So I was like, and the oxygen is feminine because it's part of the expansive side, whereas the beryllium is the masculine. So there's always this balance of masculine and feminine in the world that we see and in everything that we do. So I was like, how can a male god produce a male son without a feminine deity? Where does that come from? And the story.
And just curious briefly, because this man is so on it, I have loved his answers. He is like soared past anything she's even asked. But crap, now I'm spacing on what he's about to say, but he's about to go to town, and I love it.
Stories of Jewish folklore, I appreciate.
How is it that all the stories are pretty much the same with the one letter different? And I forget her exact. Name that creator.
The Israelites and their story, but they're not part of my history. So why am I subscribing to their deities? How have that been placed upon us? Why is it that black men who are not Jewish are getting circumcised when we are not part of that Israelite place? Why are we following their gods that they came up with?
So are you saying distinctively that faith and science are different, or?
What I'm saying is the victor's right. His story, her story. The victor's right. Some of these folks and people's tribes and clans right on out of history.
Is faith and science synonymous?
Well, science is to explain natural phenomena.
Okay.
The whole point of science was to explain natural phenomena, and it should coincide with what takes place in the observable universe. And that should strengthen one's faith. And that's why I said as above, so below. So if here, everything has an equal and opposite mate, and is necessary in order for the proliferation of life and the continuation of the death cycle that is just sleeping, and then you refold again, and you're reborn again. And I've always found it hard. I started off as a Christian. My mother raised us as Baptists and Methodists, and went through those walks, but then my father went to prison, and when he came out of prison, he was a Muslim. So we became Muslim until I was like 13 years old. And then there's this really cool brother named Yaqub. I've really appreciated me. I'd always had this wonderful musk sent to him, order dashiki. And he was such a beautiful and kind person. And then one day I came home, and my father and all of his friends were sitting around talking seriously. And I was like, what happened? Well, it turned out that Yaqub, the gentle man, had cut the genitals off of someone, a wino that had urinated on the mosque.
Wow.
And I was like,
wow.
I didn't have children at that time, but I was like, how can that God of love?
Belief is a powerful, I can't really enunciate right now, but belief is a very powerful thing. Case in point.
Right.
have one, because if my child urinated on my house, there's no way I would cut his genitals off. So why is it that somebody would do that thinking that they're honoring the creator? And I had to start rethinking things, and then I became a Jehovah's Witness. Went through that for around 20 years, and I began asking serious questions. If God had never caused it to rain until 6,000, 4,000 something years ago, had never caused it to rain on this earth. So what happened? It never rained during the times of the dinosaurs. When precipitation is part of the entire thing. And like it said, the Bible is supposed to be the inspired word of God. Therefore, if what you find one lie in there, then you have to call into question everything else that's been placed there. And I'm not sure that that is the history of the creator. And I think the creator is so much more expansive than that. And one thing that we all need to recognize, perfection cannot create imperfection. It cannot make any immortality, or eternal cannot create something that is non-eternal. And everything inside the universe is alive. And what people don't recognize is that the entire universe is the creator, and we are part of that. So we are the creator within it. And when we do good, then God is good. But when we do bad, God works in mysterious ways. But once you recognize the divinity within you, then the universe behaves as if you have the authority. And that's why it's so important to keep your word. And what Jesus was trying to tell everybody was that you are God. That's why it says God is.
That's a very emphatic statement. And I don't know if a lot of people are able to handle the statement and the essence of what it was intended.
It's like in the dang scripture. I literally, this has been sitting at my, whatever I'm laying down, so I had to get up to grab this just now. But we are co-creators. The kingdom is within. It's all in the scriptures, man. I don't understand why this is so hard to freaking conceive. That's also what I was going to say before. How do people not... When he said a male... whatever creator... Male... Something male created out of male son. And I started to wonder where it was female or whatever. Just... How does something that simple fly over everybody's heads, and they just don't even ponder on it at all? Blows my mind.
But the reason I wanted you to clarify is because even when we've talked off screen, you've referenced, even with your book you're writing, we're going to talk about that. You mentioned scriptures like Daniel when you were showing me the other day. Daniel. Yeah. So when you reference those scriptures, you're not saying that they're infallible.
No.
You're just saying that there are other things outside that we need to consider.
These are
not even, homie. Homesta. He's saying that y'all ain't interpreting it fully correctly at all. You must understand that these are all made by several different human people who make errors. And again, what I said about the victors writing his story, just let me let Terrance speak to her. But dang, man, if this is the thought process of modern pop culture America, we in for some craziness. We in for Terrance with a wig.
Historical references within it, like Jesus said, we were all made in God's image, right?
Did.
So when you look in the mirror, do you see?
I bet all you Christians know, what that's even from, the verse, the chapter, all of that. But you're gonna say you're not a co-creator?
God? And when God looks in the mirror, does God see you?
Right.
That's the question. At what point? And somebody told us we were born in sin. We were all of that and that.
And then that's where they got you done effed up, because that's a bunch of bullarchy, patriarchy. Funny. It's a bunch of baloney, honestly, and it's a really good way to keep people in check. checks and balances and make you feel like crap if you already think you're condemned forever. It's just a hot mess, but it seems to work. But there's literally no logic to it if you think about it.
The desire to mate is a sinful thing when a man is born with, in 1970.
Wait, so like he just said, it's illogical. Desire to mate is a sinful thing. Yet that is the one thing we're supposed to do. It does say be fruitful and prosperous, or that Star Trek something. Be fruitful and spread your freaking seed all over.
Healthy male produced 1,500 sperm per heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
That is a motivating factor towards getting out there and proliferating.
Motivation in a minute.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, we are 98.7% identical to simians or to chimpanzees or to apes.
What's that percentage again?
98.7%.
Which is pretty dang close, ain't it? But it sure ain't 100. And if that was the case, that we came from them, wouldn't they have evolved also? Just saying. 98.7 is pretty high, higher than I would have thought.
Identical genetically, and we're only 1.3%. There's only 1.3% differentiation between us and the simians. But how do they live?
That's kind of crazy, scary. Eugenics gone wild, and also beautiful at the same time.
They live in a harem.
Harmony, at least.
Because of producing 1,500 sperm per heartbeat, so that and the women, the females, recognize that that's what's. So how is it that, as if we're 98.7% identical?
So the females over there call the shots and decipher who's coming where, when, and how. And he's saying, how the hell are y'all trying to just throw the baby with the bathwater out, aka the womb or the woman, out of the mix? Come again?
To them, why are we attempting to live completely isolated and not following those same rules of nature? Why are we trying to do the 1.3%?
That's a serious question.
Yes.
And as a female, we've had so many issues with that because it sounds like polygamy.
What?
And
sounds like nature.
It sounds like nature.
98.7%.
Polygamous. So my question to that would be, and this is something I've posed to other people who are of that same thought, which is, if
this is unfortunate because I thought this woman at least had a damn brain, but she legit had him on here for a week.
It is in fact how we should be cohabitating. Then how do we explain STDs when you're with multiple partners? How do we reconcile that happening?
What do you mean? You be safe or you don't be? What the fuck is she talking about?
You understand what I'm saying?
It's within
no.
Difference between.
She knew she said some stupid shit, or she wouldn't have said, do you understand what I'm saying? What the fuck did this dumbass say?
Us. We are not in a position as the chimpanzees walk around with STDs. No, because they do not allow the females to go and cohabitate with others.
So many issues with that because it sounds like polygamy, and
sounds like nature.
It sounds like nature.
98.7%
polygamous. So my question to that would be, and this is something I've posed to other people who are of that same thought, which is, if it is in fact how we should be cohabitating, then how do we explain STDs when you're with multiple partners? How do we reconcile that?
Let me stop that real quick yet again. If you only have one, then you shouldn't have any STDs. And if you have one partner and only one partner and you end up with an STD, that means that partner is sleeping elsewhere. So there you go. That's how you explain that one.
Happening.
It's within
It ain't even her that I'm
What
all
takes,
mad at.
like,
It's
does the
just like
simians,
that.
does the chimpanzees walk around with STDs? No, because they do not allow the females to go and cohabitate with
To be
other
all
males
stupid like we
outside of
are.
it. Stays within this
Mm-hmm.
this community.
God.
Now, the difference between us, we are not in
The monkeys might be doing a little bit damn better than we are.
a position to carry out the natural order of things because we are not self-sufficient.
Right.
We're not.
Talk about nature, polygamy. She said, sounds like polygamy. He says, well, no, that's nature. Yeah, exactly, polygamy. I thought this woman had a brain.
Working within our own environment. So we have to ascribe to a different way of life. Like me, yeah, I have my one, and I don't have a desire to be with anyone else because this is not the environment in which you can do that. But if it was great, if I had the environment that facilitated the natural course, I would love to have a few other individuals help me with raising the family, but at 55, my appetite is
that's a lot of work.
It's work.
That's a lot of
I
work.
can barely keep up
Duh, dummy. That's why he was saying it takes a village. He looks great for 55.
with my one now. And
Exactly.
and her sex drive, because she's 47 now, has changed. So now she wants to play, and I'm like,
Listen.
I was like 1,500 sperm per heartbeat years ago. I don't think I'm there anymore.
That's a lot of work. That's my other thing. It's like it's too much work to deal with one woman, okay? So
But I'm just
multiple is gonna be a lot of work.
I'm just trying to exemplify the fact that
I get it.
that we are not living in
I get it.
under natural conditions, and we have a lot of problems associated with that.
So what would you say is your foundation
What?
as a man
Did you even
of
hear what the
where all of
man
this
said?
massive information comes from? Your thought process, the way you think, what you receive, because I hear you talking about revelation a lot, but where do you attribute that? Like, where is that coming from? Because you don't think
my
like the average
God.
person, obviously.
No, because I don't identify with average. I don't identify with that. When I look in the mirror, I see the Creator.
Okay.
I don't see anything short of the Creator. I'm. There's not one part of me that wasn't made from the Creator. So there's not one part of me that's not perfect. Now, maybe my perception and
Perfectly imperfect. Divine. She not even following.
understanding isn't there because I've allowed myself to be influenced by other things. But I see myself in the most humble way as being directly from the Creator, and I see everyone else and everything else as being directly from the Creator. Even the plastic that makes this up, that carbon is still vibrating at the key of E, breathing in and breathing out. We look at this and call it dead, but that Browning effect
Right.
is the life principle continuing on in it. So when I recognize that this is alive, it recognizes that I'm alive, and I recognize that this carries the same nature of the Creator, then it recognizes that in me, and so there's an equanimity.
Like knows like attracts like.
And I don't see myself above a piece of tissue or below the Creator Himself. So there's a balance of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very provoking mindset to have because of your extensive experience in life that most people don't get to do, with acting and everything else. What would you say has been the most rewarding out of everything you've done?
So what I took out of what she just said is that, especially being that you went down the Hollyweird road, how are you not praising God down on your hands and knees in church every Sunday?
The most rewarding thing that's ever happened to me or that I've accomplished in
That you've
this
done.
time, being able to define the entire electric field or the plasmic field and patent it.
Yeah.
And the things that I discovered with that prove that the platonic solids which our entire infrastructure is built off, were only averages and approximations, and that all of the postulates and axioms they've built off of are erroneous. And being able to present that, but also being given the blessing of defining the magnetic field, the feminine side, and patenting those, the expansion or the unfolding of the universe, but then being given the opportunity to define the neutral that sits between it, or the constitution, which is the linchpin that mitigates between the micro, which is the electric world, and the macro, which is the magnetic world. And this works as a bridge, a common factor between. So having discovered,
you can't have one without the other,
and patented the grand unified field equation, and putting it into practice and building all of these new industries that have come from it, from transcendental lighting to tangential flight, to in supersymmetrical systems. I've patented 4 supersymmetrical systems. Wow. And a supersymmetrical system it always aligns. That's how the universe behaves. And according to science, there are no supersymmetrical systems because the platonic solids have a thing called discrete symmetry. And for everybody out there,
I was just about to say
the platonic solids were 5 polygons that are based upon straight lines and flat planes, and they're the tetrahedron, the hexahedron or the cube, the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron. Now, for millennium, since the days of Pythagoras and the days of Plato, these were the undisputed, fundamentals of God. And they said that they pulled it out of the flower of life. Now, my biggest question, another thing based on what's my greatest accomplishment, would have been to question mathematical fallacy. That 1 times 1 equals 1. Because how could an action times an action not have a reaction? Because every action has a natural reaction. So I was like, how did they come up with this irrational and illogical set of things? If to multiply means to make more, then how can 1 times 1 equaling 1 be part of a multiplication table? It fails to satisfy the term multiply. So questioning that, and in the first, second, third grade, as I came along,
got you sent to that other school with the short bus.
That courage towards curiosity and an unbridled passion towards finding the truth, which therefore the Bible or any other book has to be held. You have to question it and make sure that everything that it says and purports to be is what it is. Because as a Jehovah's Witness, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, if my child would have been sick and needed blood, I wouldn't have given him blood because of Genesis 9:4 about not putting blood in your body. And then, but we were told as witnesses, you got to stay away from astrology. Stay away from astrology. And I'm like, why stay away from astrology? Why do I need? Because they told the truth about Christmas, told the truth about Easter, told the truth about holidays, all of this stuff. But why stay away from astrology? Well, it turns out all religion has come from astrology, and the astrology was astronomy. And they were trying to make sense of the heavens and how time passed and these bodies. And it turns out the sun, going through the 12 constellations, they anthropomorphized those 12 constellations and they became the disciples. And there's every story, every culture, from the Egyptians, to the Greeks. They had the same story of the Son of God. That
literally everyone has a water creation story except for Japan. Every single country.
Born from a virgin, that's betrayed by one of his disciples. He dies on the 21st, and in 3 days he rises later. Well,
they say that, but I consider myself.
Yo, that's his point. They say that, and y'all don't question it.
I call myself a believer, but I'm under the umbrella of Christian, and there are a lot of erroneous doctrines that are
in Christendom
that don't, purport what God actually has given us to examine.
How do you burn somebody for eternity for something that they did for 30, 40 years without direction? It lacks justice, and it lacks the thing we call love. There's nothing my child could do that would make me burn them forever. And then we got to think about God never breaks his laws of universal function in order to perform a miracle. That's not what happens. So I guess the person's flesh grows back and they burn the next day, grows back. That sounds like something from science fiction. All of those things the best thing you could do for a child that's out of control, if you can't get them help, is put them to sleep so that they can't harm anybody else. But you would never continually torture somebody for something that they did for a few years. You would never do it. It lacks equanimity, and the universe is based upon balance. So when I asked all of those questions, I never got the proper answer, so I had to go in search of, because I would have put my life and my family's life on the line for that. And I miss the days when I looked forward to a Savior coming in and helping us. I miss those days because it was much easier, but I recognize that we have to save ourselves. You have to be your own hero and act. Jesus didn't sit and wait for someone else to come and help. He got out and did what was necessary in order to educate and edify the people that he cared about. And as a result of that work, we have all of these wonderful ideas, but now we've lost that spirit, and it's time for us to get back into the spirit of what's right.
Well, I appreciate, your thought process concerning that. And I think there is a way to reconcile the two. I wouldn't dare tell a person how they need to personally receive truth, but you taking such a strong stance in your convictions and your revelation towards science, towards questioning the word you use is audit. You're auditing all of these systems. You're auditing the system of religion. You're auditing the system of science and math and system of education, the system of this government structure. So in that process, you don't need to know whether you're right or not. But the world is questioning.
Well, I need to know that I'm right. I need to know whether because the truth does not matter being examined. It's just the lie that doesn't like being examined. Okay. You're not supposed to ask those things, but the truth always welcomes thorough examination, rigor. That's what we're supposed to. That's what our math was supposed to do. So how do you have where the square root of 2, when you cube it, has the same value as the square root of 2 when you multiply it by 2? That's like making x cubed equal to 2x, which is equal to x plus x. That's an unnatural equation. So that means the math is off. How can you multiply by 0, but you can't divide by it without it becoming an infinity when division is the inverse operation of multiplication? That's how you check your multiplication, is you divide it back. So if you can't divide it back, then it's unreal.
Again, checks and balance is, you got to have them. I was hollering over them talking, so it probably is literally going to just sound like me hollering over them talking, but checks and balances, and this man is, wow. He knows his shit.
And, in the scriptures, Jesus didn't mind being questioned.
No.
So true, too. When, you're accused of something that you did not do, the truth so much does welcome. You want to tell it on the mountain. You want to be like, no, I can tell you it was at this time because I happened to look and da-da-da-da-da. And when you have an inner knowing, within, which lies the kingdom, but a knowingness, just that knowingness, and it doesn't come from anywhere external for that matter. An inner knowingness, because she said, so what, you don't gotta know, or some, I don't even know.
So why would the Bible
And with that said, he's really handling it quite well, I have to say. And look at him. He looks fly for 55 with his wig, Farrah Fawcett style.
Or the people that promote the Bible, why would they question or be upset with someone questioning whether these traditions?
They sure shouldn't be, since that's like literally their religion, right? You know, like, they definitely shouldn't be. They should want people to come ask questions.
Are actually from the Creator. And if they're from the Creator, you'll know. So for me, it was important to find the truth. That's all I care about. I care about the truth and make way for life.
Amen.
Because everything, whoever said that, I think it was a narcissist that said, well, God put us here and put all the animals underneath us. Says who? Why? We're the only species that is responsible for other species being extinct. We've caused millions, if not billions, of species to go extinct, from microbes to actual mammals. We are responsible. So you think we are in charge, or God put us here over this earth in this way to abuse it in this life?
No.
There's you've probably heard it, I'm sure, but there's a scripture in Isaiah, and it says that the heart of man is desperately wicked
and treacherous.
And who can know it?
Who can know it?
And I think those are some of the explicit things that explain our humanity. I like to say a lot of times that we're just very savage in our nature. And so when things happen to me, what I look at is I look at humanity. I don't blame God for what we choose to do. And I think that those are some of the imbalances of understanding truth about God's word and who he is and what his plan is for us and why we're here. But again, you auditing the lie.
I'm auditing auditing
the way she's saying auditing. I'm not like the biggest fan over right now, because she's already said polygamy where it was not even appropriate at all. And now you're said auditing multiple times. And it makes sense what he's saying in regard to auditing, checks and balances. You have to keep tabs on what's coming in, what's going out, what your overhead is, yada yada. She's saying it almost like he's a kook. Scientology, she's heard the word audit. That's, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that's what I'm getting.
Indoctrination and the dogma.
Got it.
You know.
Why do people also, this is just a general question, why do we just be like, oh, okay, got it, when we literally don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about? It's kind of like similar rather to, hey, how are you? And you say, oh, not great. People usually don't. My mom died, and I can't find my cat, and my truck got stolen. Or they don't want to hear all that. They're just being quote unquote polite. Oh no, I have to do that to do that.
What that scripture says is the heart of man, who can know it? It's desperate and treacherous. Now, treacherous means to trip one up from behind. That's the heart of man, and you think that we've been given
man knows his etymology too.
Authority or dominion over the earth. That sounds like something that somebody wanted to enslave people. You know, because they use those same things to to say that slavery was okay, you know, for all of this time. You know, you have to audit the political systems. We have to audit for 6 years. My family went through a federal criminal investigation from the IRS. 6 years thorough, went through everything for
remember
6
this a
years.
little bit.
At the end of the 6 years, they came up, well, we keep this going, or you can plead guilty to a misdemeanor of fraud. Now, I knew what they wanted me to
Right.
do was so that they could say he's a fraud, and therefore all of these other things that I would come out and say, they would be able to say, well, I was like, no, let's go to court. Let's do this in front of a jury of my peers.
Yeah, buddy.
And then they walked away from it. And then Pennsylvania,
Love it.
somebody that was really had a big appetite, they went and made a civil thing. And so I went and I responded to the person on the phone and told her, no, what you guys are doing is wrong, because anyone, taxes from 2008, 2009, even 2011, by nature would be discharged for any other citizen. So how is it you're going to try and hold me accountable for something you would have discharged? That's discrimination.
Hello.
We know that the IRS is an illegal entity.
Really?
We know that.
Yes, it's
Most
a private
I mean,
entity.
I
It's
knew
not
that,
even
but-
part of the
Yeah.
government.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, I said this to you the other night and we didn't have it on camera, but I'm gonna say it now.
I bet you are. 'Cause it-
You know, you're stirring up some stuff.
Just the truth.
And right.
Yep.
But in that, and we know all the greats, we talked about that the other night, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and all the people that stood against something or stood for something were attacked in a certain way.
Yeah.
And we talked about fear and how that plays out. So do you fear anything with what you're auditing now and
No.
how people will respond to
No. He
all
has
of
seen
these
the worst
truths
and
that you're
then some.
seeking
Be
to
good.
prove?
No, I've already proven it.
Okay.
The 97 patents prove it. You don't get a patent unless it's
Okay.
real. And then the inventions and the new industry prove it. The entire AR, VR world that you guys use with all of that came from one of my first patents, the World of Windows patent in 2009, that when I was accused of domestic violence and was unable to go and get my mail because I couldn't
That's
go to
what
the
it
house
was.
because she had a restraining
Right.
order, couldn't reach out in any way. So for a $500-something maintenance fee, my World of Windows patent was abandoned, and immediately Hewlett Packard, stamped everybody, AT&T, grabbed my patent, didn't just cite it, but built their entire AR VR world
On.
off of it.
So
I'll
is
show
that
you
was
the-
that
Sounds
is that
familiar.
what that was about? Because I did read
Thomas
where there was a domestic violence dispute
Edison.
and my first wife was
Yeah.
given a restraining order.
Yeah, no, that my first wife, that was the only woman that I've ever had a physical alteration
Okay.
with, interaction with. I had spent, because of trying to be a witness. Oh, but first let me get to, you had asked, and am I afraid? The only thing I'm afraid of is not accomplishing that which I was put on here to do. Because if I don't accomplish it, I got to come back and do it again.
Amen,
It's
brother.
what we
Amen.
need right now is the world to be saved and to raise the vibration of humanity. And the only way you do that is remove the interfering vibratory things, which is lies, and replace it with truth and everyone becoming one. So part of those lies, my first wife, who I did, and this is what I did with Rolling Stone, who we had broken up and were apart for 6 years. And I did the biblical thing. I went there, took out the trash, still cut the lawn for 6 years. That I took care of
Wow.
everything. But I was being humiliated by her. And at one point it got to me, and
Yeah.
I went to the door, and she had been really mean, and I kicked open the door, and I grabbed her,
so
and then my
glad.
kids were right there. And when I smacked her, when I said I smacked her, it was like, I was like, hey, like that.
Come
But
on
for
now.
some reason, now my brother came and grabbed her because we were working at the house. And when the police came, I told them what happened. They took us to the station. They
Took
did
her.
pictures and all of that.
So that
And
means-
when I was so surprised when she said that, when I read that she said that I'd hit her with a closed fist. Now, mind you, I weighed about 220. I was benching like 340 at the time. If I had punched her in the face, her face there would have been
It'd have been
bruises or
done.
any of that. But anybody can look up, Lori McComas or whatever name they got for her, and look at those pictures and see that
Shut up.
didn't align. But I believe that it was her attorney and her desire not to have me there in order to get the restraining order. They did that, and then she didn't know how it would affect me going into the future, and that's what my second wife used as blackmail, knowing that I had already had that there. And in our industry, there's two terrible, unforgivable sins: domestic violence and child abuse. Those two things, you're done. So I was given the scarlet letter, and I didn't know that scarlet letter was the best thing for me, because I was kicked out of the limelight and forced to be back inside of my own home. And that's when the Creator began to use me again. And I started remembering all of the things that mattered when I was a child. And that's where all of the patents came from. That's where the discoveries came from. It was during that time that I was on my own. And
do you feel that you've been forgiven?
Oh, I don't need to be forgiven.
I was going to ask.
I didn't do shit to be forgiven. No, I forgave me for losing the self-control. Right. But my kids knew the truth. I did a video explaining about my second wife, who all I wanted from her, my second wife, Michelle.
This is going to be crazy already.
We got engaged. We didn't sleep together until we were engaged. Met her in 2009. Yeah, 2008, and we got engaged in 2009. Tried to sleep together and realized we didn't have any chemistry at all. And
that's crazy.
But when I still brought her home in Philadelphia, and I was like, here, I played for her the tape of my mom right before she died. My mom died from colon cancer in 2008, and I had one dictaphone that had my mother the last 2 weeks, and her telling me, I knew you were going to be all right, and I loved you, and da-da-da. And she was like, oh, why you got it on a dictaphone? Let me put it in the computer. I can put it in the computer, and we keep forever. Okay, great. I'm downstairs. 2 hours later, I come upstairs. All of my dictaphones. Now, mind you, I'd heard that Louis Armstrong had recorded his life, so I always had dictaphones recording my life for the last 10 years before meeting her. She had downloaded all those into her computer, and a couple of them was me having phone sex, stuff like that, because I didn't know if some chick was going to come out, and the what was going to happen. So I came up and I saw that up there, and I was like, wait, no, that's my personal stuff. And I didn't know much about I didn't play with the computer that much. So she was like, oh, no problem, I'll delete it. And she hit delete, and I was like, okay, fine. So I go downstairs and find, and then 3 months later when I tell her, look, I don't think this is going to work out, she's like, you think I erased that stuff? I kept it, and I heard who you are, and da-da-da, and that's where the blackmail began. But I didn't care about the blackmail. All I wanted back from her was my mother's tape.
Hello, duh.
And I begged her and went through all of that stuff for years, just hoping she would give that back to me.
Cold woman.
After destroying my career, all of the stuff that she went out and did, not one time, not one call to the police, not one report from the police, not one report from a neighbor, not one trip to the hospital, none of those things. All she came out and said that I had hit her and had painted a black eye on, and people ran with it.
Yeah, I read it.
And when she finally gave me back the tapes after I paid her the ransom for it, she had erased everything, so she killed my mother again.
Oh my God.
And I still had to continue paying someone, and I was looking for the courts to help and all of those things. But the good thing is I forgot that 50% of me is genetically predisposed to become my mommy.
Yep.
So all I had to do was look down at my hand. There's my mommy right there.
Mommy right there.
And I shouldn't have never been afraid. So being afraid is a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah.
But nothing happens by accident, because if that hadn't happened, I would have continued making money. I wouldn't have cared about the truth. I wouldn't have cared about where we are. I wouldn't have cared about the IRS. The IRS led me to the idea of, what in the hell are we paying taxes? If my family was forced to come over here, kidnapped, brutalized, forced labor, raped, murdered. But under all of that, we built this entire country. Now, if I'm a contractor, I build a home for you.
Right.
You can't pay for the home. What happens? That home comes to me by default.
Exactly. Yeah.
So by default, the entire United States, all of its infrastructure, all of its Capitol buildings, everything that's been, the streets were built by us. They have never paid us for it. Now, the Brattle Group, which is an independent statistics group, they did an evaluation of what Barbados and their relationship with England, with Britain owes Barbados. Said it was $4.5 trillion for the 350,000 slaves that were brought over. It's $4.5 trillion. But for the U.S., they said it was $108 to $131 trillion that was owed to the descendants of slaves, that the reparations should go. Now, they don't have that. They can't even get that in 15 years from the GDP. Our GDP, we get maybe about 10 trillion at the most. Right now, there's $20 trillion in total money available, but we owe $34 trillion. So we're paying $680 billion a year in interest just on that money that will never be paid off, because there's never enough money printed in order to pay it off.
Ain't that the point?
So I know you have very illustrious reparations plan.
Yes.
You mentioned that the other night as well. And that is one of the questions I wanted to ask.
Well, let's do it.
What that plan is. But I think it's important for the people to understand
I never thought about it like this.
where we are as a nation in terms of the numbers. Because you mentioned, you asked me a question, like how many do I think is here? How many?
What population? What percentage of the population do we make
And I said
up?
50 million.
Yeah, and it
You
turns
said it's
out
probably more like 100.
it should be. It feels like we make up a third of the country. We fill up 90% of the prisons.
Yeah.
We have so much legislation regarding the descendants of slaves, but they say we only make up 12 to 13% of the population. Now, does that make sense to y'all? Does that make sense to anyone?
No.
It says that Caucasians make up 75% of the population here. But the point of that, if that's the case, we only contribute 12% to the GDP of the IRS. Now, it's immoral for them to be charging us taxes, I think, for the next 400 years.
All of us.
Because they don't have the money to pay us the reparations, the 131 trillion that we're owed. I think the only possible solution is no taxes for any descendant of slaves for the next 400 years. Now the black community, which I hate using that term black, and I hate using the term African, and I'll explain that in a second, but our community will now become an opportunity zone that every community can now invest in and reap the benefits. And we have a precedent for it, because every single city or state in our union has some kind of film credit or tax exemption or tax rebate, 20, 30, 40%, because they know they're going to get 1,000% return based on the amount of innovation that comes in. So if you allow the descendants of slaves community to become an opportunity zone, then everyone will grow and benefit. We get rid of the karmic debt that we have here, but also we inspire innovation and all of those things, and it costs them nothing but 12%.
So in that plan, because there's a thought that is proliferating throughout our community that we're not unified, and that we don't stick together, and we don't spend our money in our communities. So we spend $1.5 trillion annually in every other community other than our own. So if we get the reparations, or if we receive tax-free, are we going to still support those other groups as opposed to ourselves? And if that's the case, who is the person? Because I mentioned this the other night.
Now
Like,
we
we don't
get
have a
the
voice
feelings
like
police.
yours. We don't have a voice like Malcolm X now that people will follow. So how do we rally
Wouldn't they 86
that community
that person
together?
anyway?
I'm just saying that in the place of Black or African. I'm saying that community.
Well, let me I'll backtrack so that
Okay.
they understand why I don't want to use Black
Right.
or African. You know, Black according to the dictionary means dark and ugly and
curious
death
to
and
hear
all of
this.
those things. And if we keep in line with Dr. Emoto's work, a revolutionary scientist that realized that water is alive. It has memory and the crystallization. If you say love to it and then you freeze it, it has these beautiful crystals. But if you say hate and put all that on it, it has these malformed crystallizations. So water is affected by what we say, and where so much of our body is made up of water. So every time we say something, it can affect it, whether it's negative or positive. Well,
Whether we
the
know or
term
not.
African, that wasn't the original name of the continent.
Thank you.
Africa the A in Africa in Latin means sunny. The Frika is Greek. It means horror.
Oh, wow.
Sunny horror. Sunny horror. Sunny horror. Sunny horror. Sunny horror. Sunny horror.
Interesting.
The real name of the continent, as spoken by 2,000 tribes that live there, is Alkebulan.
Okay.
And it meant the birthplace of life.
I didn't know that.
So, as an Alkebulan American, that Alkebulan community, once we come together, because that's all it takes.
Yep.
We all sign a petition using the same Instagram, X, whatever,
Exactly.
Twitter, whatever you need to do.
Football.
We do a petition, and we'll see how many Black people how many Alkebulan people are actually here.
Okay. Now, for people that are watching that may not be as astute as you are in terms of researching, how can they fact check?
YouTube.
Check.
Okay.
How can
YouTube, the original name of
What
Africa.
you're talking about?
That's all you got to do.
Okay.
Fact
It's
check
right
you?
there.
That
Yeah.
didn't
It
make
is.
sense.
Right.
And we want them to be able to,
So for people that don't even
be
know what you're
self-sufficient
talking
in their
about,
learning
How
process
can they fact
and in the process
check you?
of
Okay.
hearing information that's
weird.
new, because we know this cognitive dissonance
Yeah, that's true.
keeps people from hearing truth or even hearing something that's coming from a place that they've never heard before. So even with the mathematics, 1 times 1 is not 1, it's 2.
Yeah, and see what I had to do, what they didn't know when I first came out and talked about the number system. They didn't know that I had already discovered that in the calculator. They didn't know that I had discovered four
the way you
supersymmetrical
do it.
systems based off of 1 times 1 equaling 2. When 1 times 1 equaling 1 does not, that their entire system is based off of that. So they didn't know that I had already patented it and it had already been proven out. So that's what you have to do first. You got to make sure you take care of your foundation and then you build up off of
Yeah.
it.
Dot
So
the
I
I's and
took care of
cross the
that, but
T's.
we will come together just by talking about this. If everyone is talking about this and demanding it, they've given it to Germany is still paying reparations to those that were
Yeah.
in the Holocaust.
Well, the governor, I think it's the governor of New York, I saw, where they have released 183 million, I believe, to Holocaust survivors in New York.
So
Fascinating.
surprised,
Right.
but
And it's interesting
honestly,
that
I'm
they
not,
have not
actually,
yet
because
still even wanted to have the conversation surrounding reparations, but it gives me pause
don't
because I'm
own
always
Hollywood
wondering, why
either,
don't
do
you even
they?
want to have the conversation?
Duh.
And I know it's a subject that most people don't want to talk about, most people don't want to hear. Most times it's, oh, just get over it. You know, get over it already. And I think that's very insulting,
It's extremely.
that it's dismissive to think that we're not owed not just conversation, but reparations itself.
The IRS calls it a frivolous argument.
Oh my good
A
God.
frivolous argument to demand that which was given to the Native Americans, to demand that which was given to the Japanese Americans that was in the internment camps, to
So
demand
much
that which was given to
contradiction.
every other group of people that's been harmed.
Right.
It's a frivolous argument because they know they didn't have the money for doing. There's some governors that tell them, oh, let's give them all $1 million a piece. No, give me $131 trillion, and if you can't do that, no taxes for the next 400. Make it 500-600 years because you got to add on the penalties that would have come with all of that.
I have another proposal.
Oh boy.
Go ahead.
So in the Bible, there's a verse, I think it's in Proverbs, where it says, when a thief has been found, that they are to not only return what has been taken, but also 7 times more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's owed, and I mean, I'm not a math magician like you are, so somebody do the math of what is actually owed from what has been stolen from our ancestors. And even us, still being here. So it again,
they don't have the money to do it. The money has never been printed and never will be printed enough in order to cover that. That's why I'm like, okay, well, let's have a win-win. You lose 12% of your GDP to the IRS. You gain 1,000% of innovation as a result, and you have the karmic debt lifted. And I think every single country that has participated in that, it would bring such an ease to the world.
That's why they won't do it.
It's a simple and reasonable thing. Now, if they're not willing to respond to a petition, then we file a class action lawsuit. And all it takes is 2 of us to file a class action lawsuit against the United States government for crimes against humanity and demand that back. But if everyone comes together and do that.
And by everyone, that's inclusive of not just, what is it, Nebula? Nebula? Alkebulan. Not just Alkebulan people.
Yes, but if all of us come together and demand it, like the Native Americans demanded it, and it was given to them, and they suffered more than we did.
Damn.
They lost their entire country. They lost everything.
My grandmother's Cherokee, so
So those are big components. And if I'm the only one out there saying it, you can come and try and hurt me. But if everyone is participating in this, because everyone will stand to benefit, I think when young men and women see one man stand up and they see another woman and man come and grab to them, then there's an opportunity for growth because they know, hey, you may be able to hurt one of us, but you can't hurt all of us.
Right.
And you can't hurt me until the Creator says that my work is done.
Right.
And when my work is done, then I'm open to whatever happened. It could be a microbial that takes me out, but nothing is going to harm me as long as I'm doing the work of the Creator and moving our people together just towards truth. That's all I want is absolute truth and transparency.
There we go.
So when you talk about work, how do you categorize the work that you've done on the acting side? It's so different. It's so vastly different. Let me just say that. I recognize it just in talking to you and doing the research on all of your other interviews and what you've done already, and we're definitely going to get into that.
He's a cool individual.
But how do you categorize the two?
Well, you compartmentalize it because of the very nature that it exists. Like I said before, and I've used this illustration, so I'm going to keep the consistent messaging. Can you imagine if Jesus showed up every day at 5:30? Okay, y'all, at 6 o'clock, I'm going to walk on the water. Pay the money because I'm going to walk on water. And he did that every day. Me as an actor is literally, I consider it as Jesus walking on water for tips.
Wow.
It's
effortless.
Yeah, people say, okay, you're an actor. Why don't you keep acting? Why don't you keep acting? Because I have an entire generation that needs this truth. An entire generation that needs to understand the truth about what's taking place within the universe. Because we are, I'll take you guys on another walk. In 1970, they did examination of the human body. Like I said, the average male produced 1,500 sperm per heartbeat. They redid that same test in 2020. The average male produced 10 to 15 million sperm. That's a 2.64% reduction by year. So if you follow that out, by the year 2045, there will be no males left on this planet able to produce sperm.
Holy fuck.
Why? Because of a thing called bisphenol, hard plastics, BPAs or BPHs, or phthalates. PHTHYLATES, a nasty word. But what it does, because they didn't know what to do with the products from the refinery, so they started putting it in polyester and all of these clothes. But as a result, what that plastic does in those fine particles does in our body sees, the carbon. Estrogen is made from carbon. Testosterone has carbon attributes to it. So the adrenal receptors are going around throughout the body. Everything okay? Everything is okay. And if it's not okay, then the male's body produces testosterone and it fills those receptors. And if it's not okay for the woman, the female's body, her ovaries produces estrogen, and they go and their body is now imbalanced. But because of the phthalates, what it does, it mimics the estrogen. It mimics the testosterone inside those adrenal receptors. And so now the testes don't produce, and so men become effeminized.
Is that what's going on?
There's a guy named Dr. Tyrone that funny name, but he did a test with frogs, and the frogs became homosexual.
Boom.
The females become masculinized, and the males become feminized. And it's something that's a terrible thing that's taking place, and that's what I like about the Honorable Minister. He's constantly been talking about maintain your man card. You don't trade that in, but take care of your body and know what you are putting in it. So stop drinking plastics, because by 2045 there will be no males left on this planet. Not just within the human species, the human platform of life. We're talking about, because the plastics are in the oceans everywhere. So so you're talking about an extinction level event for everything in less than 26 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
my lifetime.
26 years if we don't turn around. But what's interesting, if you stop drinking plastic today, within 3 months your testosterone levels come back, your estrogen levels come back. If you remove the plastic from it, unless your mother drank from plastic while you were in utero, because now there's this thing called the ADG, the anus to genital gap. That for a woman is supposed to be twice as far between. Should be twice as between a male and a female. But now
GG.
Yeah, well, now the young men, you can't distinguish the distance between the two, and so you can't reverse that.
Wait, what?
You can't reverse that.
Okay, so
men are being born with micro penises and, all of these things, and you can't reverse that. But for us of that original age, that, we have a chance to fix it. Most people can fix it if you take the plastics out, but they don't want you to do that because they need people to pass away.
Yep.
So, and again, we talked about food earlier, but I've been vegan for like 27 years.
You got that
but lately,
right.
when I was saying earlier before we started rolling, I don't even like eating because so much of the food is GMO or plastic. So I drink out of glass bottles if I can find them.
That's all I drink.
That's all I drink is. I'm not going to give them a plug right now because they're not paying me. So I'm not going to mention the name of the brand I use, but glass bottles is what I drink out of. And I've been doing that for, oh my God, I don't know how long. And most people look at it like, oh, you think you're better? It's like, no, I don't want to drink plastic. And I'm going to tell you a true story. I was cooking grits one day, and I was using, this was years ago.
What's grits?
Yellow grits. I'm not going to tell you the brand. Just grits. And I was putting some, I'm not going to use the brand. It was a brand that comes in this container. It's brown and tan, got black writing on it. Everybody uses it, especially in the
South.
Yes. So I put the butter in there. It took forever to melt. And that's when I was like, something is wrong with this food. It's got to be plastic because it wouldn't melt.
Damn.
I stirred it and stirred it and stirred it, and it just would not melt. And I'm like, this is not right. There's no way that this hot, because y'all know hot grits.
Yeah.
We know what hot grits can do.
Al Green will tell you that.
Hello?
Al Green will tell you that.
It wouldn't melt. So I'm like, okay, plastics in the butter, plastics in the food. Even the salmon, I was eating salmon at one point, and they're saying now that the actual real salmon, the modified salmon, is eating the real salmon. So you can't even get wild caught salmon.
No.
Because of all the genetically modified things that are going on. And so many people don't know these
We are
things.
Facing extinction. So when people say, hey, Terrance, why don't you keep acting? No, I'm trying to keep us alive right now.
Amen,
Go back to the
brother.
work.
Amen.
Because I did see where you were coming. You said you want to retire, and then you came back.
Yeah.
So what was that transition like, and why did you decide to come back, even if it's for a brief moment?
Well, no, it's because finances. You have to. The moment that, you go through the 6-year criminal tax investigation.
Yeah.
Spend $3-4 million defending yourself, and then because it's just paying money to lawyers, and so that their whole thing is to bleed you out.
Right.
Now, a fascinating thing. It's be 2 points. I had an issue with Fox and Fox and Disney.
Disney, damn,
Because
dropping names.
the image that you see for Hustle and Flow, for Empire, that profile, that came from a still shot on from Hustle and Flow. They took that, flipped it, and put it on everything, made a trademark of it, sold it around the world, didn't ask my permission.
Are you serious? Wow.
He ain't probably not.
That
kidding.
image is worth $100 million at least for how much money that they made from it. We got a forensic photographer person to go and find the actual frame. We took that to Jams because we were forced into arbitration with Jams. You're not allowed to use the court system. You have to go into forced arbitration with Jams.
Are you serious?
And even seeing it, and knowing that the arbitrator said, yeah, this definitely came from Hustle and Flow.
Okay.
But Fox and Disney have broad rights.
What?
They have broad rights. It's like, huh?
Wow.
Based on what?
We abroad.
My writer clearly says you can only use it in character. You can only take pictures from something that is in character. How are you able to take something from an entirely other movie, and then Fox lost all of its records of how it came up with the image.
I was about to say how they get it.
Every email concerning their logo, they lost all of that, and we get to the arbitration, and that's not concealment.
Damn.
What?
That's not. So I'm like, okay, well, all right. And then the arbitrator started saying that we asked for rights of publicity. No, we couldn't do that. Rights of publicity, you only got 2 years to do that, and they had concealed the entire time. Told me that it was from, it was a composite of me and another actor, which meant that it wasn't something from me. So they lied, did all of that stuff. We proved all of that in court.
Perjury.
But fortunately, the arbitrator had made some erroneous statements inside of things, so we go to the appellate court. And I'm like, okay, you know what I'm gonna do? We get the appeals for the under Jams. We go there, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to get any superior court judges. I want to get federal judges, because they were appointed and they didn't have to go through the process of maybe having to do favors and all that to get their stuff. Those federal judges, they said, well, instead of coming down and saying, okay, well, what the arbitrator did was a mistake. Maybe it was a little over. Maybe he had a Joe Biden moment.
You know what?
Maybe it was that. I don't know. Instead of them doing that, they said, well, the producers had the character in mind when they took the picture, and therefore it's in character.
They had it in their
They
mind.
doubled down on that lie, and to this day, this happened 2 months ago, 3 months ago, they have not entered that into the Superior Court. I'm like, enter it into the Superior Court, because the first thing we're going to do is take it to SAG, and SAG is going to now be forced to adjudicate or deal with it, because this makes their rights of publicity or any right they have to an actor, null and void because they can steal any picture from your baby photo. The moment you sign that, hey, you have the right to use my image, they can now go to anything and conceal it from you. And if you find out about it, they don't have to tell you about it. They don't have to pay you for it. Even they put it on merchandise because they can cut to this precedent. And I'm like, do it.
So that's like
enter it into the thing. And on top of it, picture this. Now that's money that should have been in my pocket. Now CAA.
That's a lot of money that should have been.
Well, let's go to another one. CAA, Creative Artists Agency. They represented me. They also represented some of the people from Big Bang Theory. They also did the deal with Fox. My show was with Fox. The people from Big Bang was with Fox. We had 28 million viewers. They had 11 million viewers. Yeah. They were getting $2 million, damn near $3 million an episode, those white kids that had no name recognition, no Oscar nominations, none of that. We have 28 million viewers, and these jokers are paying me $325,000 an episode. And I'm like, every year I'm asking my agents, what's going on? I didn't know that the packaging deal, my agents were incentivized to keep my pay low. So they'll go to Fox and say no, and they'll say no themselves because they were producers. They owe me over $120 million based on what would have been paid to white counterparts. Yeah. So now I'm in the process of suing them about it. And when I asked them about my money, they sent me a check for $666.
Oh my!
Wait,
Bet they did. Sorry. Wow, that's ballsy. Ballsy. Oh, that's ballsy. Man, he's on fire, dude.
$666 to say,
wait,
$666 exactly.
What?
Not saying where it's from. So I was like, oh, y'all trying to threaten me.
This is a market piece.
This is a threat. This is a threat right here. And y'all think I'm scared? You think I'm going to be quiet about this? Because I wonder what you're doing to every other black artist.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's
how do you negotiate $2 million for a white cat and negotiate $325,000 for a black cat that has 3 times what the white cat is getting? They were getting $750,000 for a 30-second spot for advertisement. That's what you get for bigger sometimes than the Super Bowl. And they were getting that every week from us, but they were incentivized, and that's why packaging deals were illegal. But now I'm waiting to go to court now to deal with CAA concerning that stuff. And they're like, oh, don't you want to work in the business? No, I want my money so I don't have to work. That's the whole point of working. I wanted to retire so I can do what I got to do. So
this is important to know. Because, I know you've heard.
I had to get back on the stroll.
That everyone,
don't get me started.
I know.
Don't get me started.
I got to ask you about that too, though.
No.
So
he said, no.
I'm gonna go the acting route.
Okay.
If you were to choose a wife from any of the characters that you played opposite of, which one would it be?
Say what? Repeat that. What the fuck?
I haven't had too many wives. And,
you want me to give you some examples?
Yeah, give me some. Throw some.
So like Hustle and Flow or Empire.
No, Taraji she wouldn't be on it. She wouldn't.
Okay, so
she would. That's just not my nature.
The last series you did with the Best Man Holidays.
No.
Okay.
No.
Trying to think of a good one.
I would choose not to have a wife.
Okay, that might be.
Brother.
If because there's so much work that I have to do, and like the Temptation said, you've got to shower a woman. A woman needs constant attention. They need and it's.
We were made that way.
I know, and
we were made that way.
It's hard to give all of the attention that a woman needs when you have to take care of trying
All
to
this, that, and the
educate
other.
or lift up an entire nation, entire generation.
Yep.
So
Like 3
this is good.
generations,
This
actually.
is good because
Is it good?
as women, we're always taxed as being emotional creatures. I think we're both emotional, men and women. I just think men it's called ego and women is emotion.
I've never thought about that, but
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
That is
I think it
true.
would
They're
be
both,
true.
yeah, because men are, I think they're very emotional.
Yeah,
Same
they
tear
are.
ducts
they're
that women
right,
have.
yeah.
They are.
It's just not expressed in the same
Yeah,
manner.
100%.
It's not
And
acceptable.
and as frequently as we do. And because of, yes, we were raised differently. Women were raised to be in the kitchen, to be cooking. I mean, by the time
be
we
nurturing.
could walk, yeah, we have bottles in our mouths and we have little plate vacuum cleaners and, dishes to cook and clean with and pots and pans and
Consistent.
babies. Is constant programming from the time we were
Yep.
born.
Yep.
So when I
That's so
encounter a
true.
man that says, "Oh, you're so emotional, you're this,
I've
you're that," it's
seen
like this is who I was
nieces right now.
created and formed to be, is a wife.
Loves her
So it's
kitchen
like
set.
all I know is how to take care of you, how to get up in the morning and cook and do all these things, and then I'm told, "Oh, you're too emotional." It's like, so how do we reconcile that? But you guys grow up playing in the streets.
Yeah.
Football, playing with
That's
fellas,
right.
you know what I mean?
Boys
You're
are
always
made
out.
of snakes and snails and puppy dog tails. Again,
Exactly.
Africa. Or
Right.
women are told girls are made of sugar and spice and everything
Everything
nice.
nice.
So that kind of messaging and the trauma that a young man feels immediately when he's born
Yeah.
is the most sensitive part of his being, having that snipped to say, "Hey, welcome into the world." All of those things have massive effects upon how we come about. But you had asked a question. You had said something. I had to joke.
No.
I didn't remember myself.
I know. We were talking about the work and what made you transition from retirement to then, and then we went into
Yeah, I had to.
why you had to retire.
I had to because I still have to take care of my family. I still have all of these industries. I have to get Linchpin fully launched into the world because literally the first country that gets 10 million Linchpins will rule the world because there's nothing else that stops.
Yeah. Do you feel as though your message and your mission now with Linchpin, with the mathematical errors that are going on, do you feel like that message is being received?
Oh, it is.
Okay.
People are hearing it. There was a video that I didn't even put together that was put together that
Yeah.
within 3 days we were at 1.2 million
Yeah, that ain't
views
that long.
on
Yeah.
it. I watched it go from 9 o'clock in the morning from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the morning 2 days ago. Went from 900,000 to 1.2 million, and then it just stopped out of nowhere. Did it just stop out of nowhere? Or are they afraid that it's being spread out there because I was saying the truth about everything? It's being
Funny.
received because
Yeah.
people got their calculators. It's being received because the thing about geometry, like somebody can have an equation. And they can confuse a lot of people with an
geometry
equation.
you
They
kinda
can confuse a
cannot.
lot of people with a long lecture. But geometry is its own proof.
Yep.
Symmetry, supersymmetry is its own proof. The eyes look at, well, it looks right. That in itself, you can't argue with. For years, when I was talking about the 1 times 1 equaling 2, the world attacked, and they attacked so vigorously and viciously about it. And they didn't know. I waited. I waited until they would till the hook was all the way down in their intestines. Then I pulled out it with the calculator. Then I tugged at it some more with the patents. Then I tugged at it some more with inventing, making fixed-wing aircraft obsolete, and tugged a little more by inventing tangential flight.
Tangential flight. I got that word.
She was
You heard me.
transgender flight. Transgender flight. That sounds like a flight from Atlanta.
Tangential. I was like transgenital. Like, what is that word?
Ah,
But I got it now.
Tangential, meaning to go off in a tangent or fly around your own center of mass, something they've never been able to accomplish with only 6 props. But we don't just have tangential flight, we have unlimited mid-air bonding. We've also defined, patented an entirely new propulsion system that makes the cartridges and all of the other projectile systems that they have obsolete. The U.S. government doesn't have what I have. There's no government in the world that has what I have because all of their stuff is based off of obsolete fundamentals because we've now proven that the platonic solids are averages. And I literally would welcome anybody out there.
I love that point you just made.
University,
whomever,
physicists, theorists, chemists. I would love to have a head-to-head duel. And let's put this out there and examine the truth. You know, and at the end of the day, if you're right, I'll walk away. You can take the patents. But if I'm right, you hand me your accreditation. You hand me your PhD. You don't deserve it anymore.
I agreed.
That's huge.
I'm down for it. Let's play. Let's play because the truth don't lie.
Time to play.
That's huge.
The truth don't lie.
That's
Neil
a huge
deGrasse
thing.
Tyson, who I initially sent my treatment to, 36 pages, came back, sent all these red-lined and these disparaging, you know, kind of very was rough. Hey, man, let's get together. Let's have a talk. Let's debate and see if what you say is true. And then you put your accreditation up. I'll put my patent up. And we'll see who has the truth and who's a liar.
Wow. Because I saw the interview you did at Oxford. And we had this conversation the other night, I and Dre. And I got to give Dre a shout out for bridging this situation between us being able to sit here. I've known him for so long. But he's the reason why we're here. And I appreciate him being able to be a facilitator. Voice, you know, for me, and somebody that, you know, we need these people. You know, like you need people to get your message out there. We need people that are always willing to go before you, that believe in what you're doing. And I think I told you the other night, like I told Dre this, I think 2 weeks before you even called me, I saw a video you did, the one at Oxford. And when I heard you talking about this, excuse me, I was like, number one, I had no idea that your mind was like it is, as I'm sure a lot of people don't, because we do have a tendency to only see people one-dimensionally, you know, in terms of what you do as an actor. You know, we see Q.
Well, I just didn't know.
One of my favorite characters, Quentin Spivey.
Quentin Spivey.
That is my dude, okay? I will always see him. He is. So we tend to only see that, okay? Like, he is the reason why, you know, we fell in love with who Terrance Howard is, you know? And so all of your work that you embody is, you know, so necessary. And I want to say thank you for being used, you know, because you've impacted a lot of people. But on this side, you've impacted us even more because now you're challenging us to hear something that we've never even considered. I took physics in high school. I barely got out of there with a B something.
Because it's on some BS.
Because it was like, whew.
It's BS.
So to hear you talk about, and I mean, I had geometry and all that, and I aced math. I had like 106 grade average in math, algebra 2. I didn't do calculus and trig. But to hear you talk about math, 1 times 1 never made sense to me. And so as a child, and I think I told you this the other night, I always wonder, like, how do we know that? So I could not disprove it, though. Oh, yeah, it was just a natural curiosity.
Calculator.
Right?
I put it in the calculator.
Okay.
And I was like, let me just walk. It took me, I was in Africa. I was in in Johannesburg, shooting Winnie and Nelson. And 2:00 in the morning, I just finished doing an interview on the radio, and I'm just sitting there playing with the calculator. And the angel said, hey, why don't you put square root of 2 in there? Then just cube it, see what happens. And then I did it times 2. Then I added it to itself. And I was like, how is these the same number? I was like, did somebody slip me something? I know I had a little tequila at the bar, but
Okay.
I was like, is this real? And then so I
Is
kept
this
putting
real?
this cycle in here where I put the square root of 2, cubed it, divided by 2, cubed it again, divided by 2. It kept coming back to the same number. And I did it 216 times. I was like, oh, this is a loop. I found the place in the matrix where it doesn't
Right.
fit together.
It was a glitch.
Oops. Oops. You shouldn't have you shouldn't have told me that.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, well, the same way that the same spirit had led me to every other, discovery, because I was willing. It's just about being willing to be used. And the Creator will use you. You can't be afraid of it. And can't be afraid of the consequences of it. You have to embrace it. And what I'm hoping is that the young men and women that's out there, they recognize and see the potential of change just by standing up.
Amen.
And doing what's right and refusing to lay down. And that only comes when you know your purpose and your position, and you are unwilling to compromise that, because you're asking me to compromise divinity, and the divine does not bow.
Nope.
And if they move with it, then we have a sustainable future. Because what I've discovered in the grand unified field equation with discovering the proton, defining the proton, and doing all these things, you've got to remember this is the geometry of hydrogen itself. 99% of the universe is made up of hydrogen. So if we have the template for hydrogen, we have the template for reality and all the things that come with it, and that means life and death. So we can extend this existence. We can heal the diseases. We can heal. We can live till time indefinite, not through praying and God fill us back up and all of that.
Because we need the Lord to fill us up.
Because the truth is, you're going to float off into some spirit realm and do what? That's not what happens. Every element, goes through the transition and comes out the other side. You'll take, all right, I'll do it.
I know, because I know you're about to
in the carbon octave, you've got you start with your helium, and the neon is on the other side. Because really, there's only 7 elements, 7 tones for the most part, because all of the elements occur between the pressure conditions of 2 noble gases squeezing on each other. So in the carbon octave, where they squeeze themselves all the way up, you start with lithium, beryllium, boron. Then you have carbon, which is a plus and minus 4. It's both male and female, because you're getting hit from both sides. It has a double tone. Then it goes to nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. Fluorine, it goes through the noble gas. Now fluorine comes out, and now it is sodium. It goes from feminine to masculine. So when you breathing in is a masculine thing, a charging of a system, as Walter Russell said. Breathing out is a feminine expanding of a system, a discharging of the system. You never breathe in twice without breathing out once. So how can you go we know this isn't our first lifetime here. We've all felt that we've been here forever. Can you remember not existing?
Right.
Do you remember not being?
No.
But do you think you've been a woman in every lifetime? That wouldn't be fair. But it would make sense if you're masculine male in this lifetime, the next life you become feminine. You're a woman. Come back to male. Breathing in, breathing out. That equanimity will allow for karma to take place. Whatever I've done to women in this life gets done to me in the next one. Whatever women have done to men in this life gets. And what happens biologically?
That's interesting, though.
What happens biologically? The male's body stop producing the testosterone, produces more estrogen, start growing boobs, become less aggressive and more understanding. The woman, what is she doing? She's slowly coming up to being more masculine. Start actually growing little beards and all of that stuff. She's the prostate, which is the same exact tissue that is in the uterus. When the testosterone level drops, guess what? The estrogen level rises, the prostate, what does the uterus do every month? It sheds. It grows and it sheds. So what happens to the prostate? It starts trying to swell because it's being influenced by the estrogen. The testes go back up and become ovaries. The ovaries drop down and become testes. It's just a cycle of going, breathing in, breathing out. The universal breath. And understanding that it brings us back to a balance. So I'm like, you want a transgender? Just wait in a couple of years and the next life it's going to be exactly what you want.
There you go.
You're going to get there.
You gonna get
Fulfill
there.
your role that you're here. Fulfill the role that you were placed here to fulfill.
Be
Do that
here
job,
now.
get it done, and you move to the next one with the blessing of universal purpose.
Amen. Well,
You know?
That's so
damn,
compelling.
I was drawing a picture.
It's compelling on so many levels.
That was so good
Because
stuff.
again, you are defying systems that have been set up and built and in place for so long, like hundreds, thousands of years, that this information has just been
Somebody gotta do
recycled
it.
over and over and over from generation to generation. And yes, been indoctrinated and definitely been
Regurgitated.
inundated with so much information. So to dismantle all of those things, I feel as though I've always been a person that's been, pretty open to hearing. But again, cognitive dissonance will not allow some people because it'll evade their ability to just be open and receive something that they've never heard or something they may even know is true. You pose a very compelling question about, can you remember your existence from the beginning till now? And, that's compelling.
Good question.
I think there's so much to know that we will spend the rest of our lives learning.
Well,
There's
I hope
just
so.
too
That's
much
a given.
information to receive. And I believe you're one of the persons that have been gifted to hear things that no one
all
else has
have
heard
these gifts.
or considered, or if they have,
said
we haven't been
no.
exposed to them. So whatever your sphere of influence is that
Oh
you've
my
been
God.
granted, now ears are opening
we
to
all
hear
have-
that, because some people may not ever hear from a Terrance, Deshaun, Howard. But then you have people on the other side of the world that may be having these same conversations. We may not ever know that. But I do think that the work that you're doing is impeccable. I think that the work that you're doing is necessary. And I believe we're on the precipice of a paradigm shift. And
so.
it started years and years ago. But where we are now, especially post-pandemic, if we don't think that things are able to change, all we got to do is go back and see what happened in 2020, because everything that we know has shifted, and it will
Yeah,
not
that
go
was the
back
point,
to what we consider to
y'all.
be normacy. And so with your introduction of where you are now, 'cause I heard you say you've been working on this, 45 years?
Longer.
Longer than
lifetime.
for a lifetime.
For a lifetime.
For a lifetime. I heard you say in
no
another
idea.
interview that from the time you were a child, you've been questioning things. And because of something your mother wanted out of you is why you aspired to do acting.
Yeah, no, my mother didn't want it out of me. She loved my little brother so much because he was really handsome. He looked like her father, and she lost her father when she was like 8, 9 years old. So my younger brother, Antonio, she loved him so much, and she wanted him to become an actor and all of that stuff. And I thought if I became an actor, I would get my mother's affection and have her love. And that's why that tape was so important, because my mother on her deathbed was like, Terry, I always knew you were going to be all right. But I was so close to Tony because he had asthma, and your father was wasn't that understanding to him at the time. I was just protecting him. That's why it was so important to have it. But yeah, I realized that I never really wanted to be an emotional whore. I didn't. I did it thinking I would get my mother's love, which I already had. And now, it pays the bills. It keeps my family taken care of, and it has given me this platform so that I can disseminate this truth, and I can question this stuff from this place. But my desire is just for all of us to come together and tear down the lie, bulldoze all of these institutions that proliferate that lie, and embrace the truth and the reality and take care of this planet. Make way for life. And anybody that wants to know about these things that I'm talking about, I wrote a book, gave it out for free. 1 times 1 equals 2, but it's go to TCOTLC.com, Tango Charlie Oscar, Tango Libra Charlie.com, and you can download the book for free. Anytime you see a green clover, tap on it. I have supplemental information to help you guide and build apps so you can help be able to understand this truth. And if you want to understand a much broader picture of where a lot of the science understanding came from, look up Victor Schauberger, who dealt with water and the fluid dynamics associated. Look up John Keeley, who in the 1870s built the first perpetual motor. Or look up Walter Russell.
I was going to say Walter
the universal
Russell.
one.
Yeah.
You go there. If I passed away, if all the books were taken away from everybody, and there was only one book I could take into the future in order to build a new society off of it, I would take my book, or ask that, because in this book I prove that the Platonic solids are averages, and I show them the wave conjugations that replace them, and show them the proper way to utilize universal function. And to be able to maximize with it. But Walter Russell's book, The Universal One,
Oh my.
will give you a consciousness and an understanding that will change everything. And if you're not ready for that, just get the New Concept of the Universe by Walter Russell. He did this in 1926 and redefined the periodic table based on tones.
Because you said something earlier about sounds. Colors have sounds.
Yeah, he did.
Remember, sound wave has the same dance that a light wave has. It's just the sound, one is longer and one is shorter.
Yep.
If you want to know the color of a particular sound, you take its frequency and you keep doubling it until you get into the visual spectrum. And then you'll have the color. If you want to know what a color sounds like, you keep dividing it by 2 until you get into the audible section, and then you'll understand it and draw the correlations between those things.
Smart.
So for a novice who is totally like listening to you and it's like wah, 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 because it's just unfathomable to try and ingest so much, what would you suggest if they were even barely inquisitive, that they research in order to even understand you? Because some people are going to have to go and pull out
go to my book.
encyclopedia.
Go to my book, TCOTLC.com. It's right there. It's right there. And I wrote the book, basically my commonsensical mind was having a conversation with my educated mind, because I went to school for chemical engineering for only a year. And it was like, oh, this is some BS. Then we get up out of here and went and did something else. And now 97 patents later, 97 patents, trademarks, and registered.
You have 97
Didn't hear
patents,
that before.
trademarks, and
said that.
copyrights.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah, 97.
about 60 of them is for new technology, because I knew it was necessary based on Walter Russell had discovered the 3 elements that follow hydrogen but precede helium, and he watched as everyone's, because he didn't have the accreditation, that everyone came and stole and watched people go up and collect Nobel Prizes on behalf of him, on the work that he did. So I knew, okay, let me patent this. Let me wait till the patents are granted before I go and talk about any of these things. So that's what got him really a tough brain. Excuse my language. It's the fact that you can't disprove what I've done, and if you say something about it, you're just going to spread it more. You hurt me, you're going to spread it more, because the book is free, and the entire world infrastructure could collapse as a result of what I have, because the universities that are rooted in this dogma and this mathematical fallacy, they lose all of their authority at that moment.
Academia.
Would you consider yourself to be chosen?
Everyone is
Even in acting, even in, in your craft, what you do. Because everyone doesn't perform at the level that you do and that you have as an actor.
No, I don't consider myself different or chosen, because you got to think. If we go back to in 1970, if in a healthy ejaculation, it was anywhere from 250 to 500 million sperm that was sent into my body. The first 100 million, 50 million died in the acid, got caught in the votes. In order for, it's comparable to a 24-hour blind man marathon trying to go from here to the moon, and you don't have any instruction on how to build a rocket or any of that stuff, and when you get to the moon you got to crash your head into it and bury yourself into it. But in order to get to life, I had to win a 500 million man race against a 500 million of my own brothers and sisters. Blind marathon, not even knowing where I had to go, but I trusted my instinct and I got there. For a woman, it's a 72-hour to even 128-hour blind marathon, because the female sperm can live up to 3 to 7 days now.
Damn.
In comparison to the male sperm that only lives for 24 hours. So any of us that get to life, we've already won a 500 million man race. If you ran a 500 million man race, blind marathon a day, and you won that blind marathon, you'll be on the cover of every magazine, every cereal box, there'll be states and countries named after you. But that's what every person did in order to get here. But when we get here, we stop running. We stop chasing. We stop recognizing that as above, so below. If I had to run this race to get here, then now I've got to continue this race. I just continued running. That's the only difference. I was not afraid to question. And that made a huge difference. And it's just trust that you are already a winner. You're already made in God's image, so you have that divinity, Just put on your wings and fly.
So for every person out here listening and watching who sees you and hears everything you're saying, but they still desire to get into the field of acting, what would you say to them?
Do what you got to do. If that's what you want to do. But one of the things one of the problems that we had, a lot of young women and men come out to LA or New York, or they go to Singapore or Hong Kong or some major city, and they try and become actors, and they've saved up for about 6 months, and they try and do all of that, and then after 6 months they don't have it, and they start borrowing money. Then after about another 3 months, they get in a desperate place where they're about to be evicted, and so what happens? They go and try to answer some modeling ad or some casting. Turns out it's porn. They end up in the porn business because they're too embarrassed to come back. So what my one did, Mira, we developed an app called Holly, which is democratizing the entertainment industry. So where you can stay home and keep your day job, you can stay in school and still come and audition at the end of the day and put it up on Holly, and handle casting. And now you don't have anyone out there. You don't have to lose your day job. You don't have to quit school. You don't have to stop being a doctor or a contractor. You can do all of those things and still build your thing. So if you want to really be successful, go to myholly.app. Right now we're in the beta testing.
And that's your app, because I didn't see that.
That's our app. And we want to bring a community of artists together to where we don't need SAG anymore. We don't need the agents. We don't need the managers. Get rid of all the middlemen, and now we support each other and grow as a system. So
that's awesome. Yeah,
that's what I would tell somebody to do. Work within the community.
So you had a birthday Monday.
Yes, I did.
How you feel?
I'm double nickels now.
I mean, double nickels. I have a gift. Before we wrap,
a chainsaw?
Yeah, because you got to cut this system up. You got to cut this system up. No, but I want to be one of the first people to award you in your work. So I have an award for you.
Oh my Lord!
That I'm going to present to you as another birthday gift and just as an incentive to keep going. Not that you need that.
I can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop.
I can't stop.
I can't stop, yeah. Okay, here we go. All right,
Got to keep
I'll read
on
it to you.
moving.
Let's present this to them. Hey, Lord. And it says, Legacy Award, Terrance D. Howard. It says, for your brilliance, bravery, and tenacity to illuminate and challenge history and the systems of this world. From Straight Talk, Daphne Wyn. This is my award to you for the work we've already started and to encourage you to keep going.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say.
I couldn't give you a Nobel Peace Prize, but
No,
this is the closest I could get to it.
no, they are.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, it has begun.
Yep.
Well,
And I just would like to say prophetically that I decree and declare that this will not be the last of your recognition for the work that you've put in and for the sufferings that you've endured throughout your life. And I know your mother is proud.
yes,
Yeah,
that's a good time.
it is.
Stop what you're doing and turn up your radio.
Okay, so if I went a little hard on her, I didn't mean to. That was like, I mean, you gotta remember that not everybody has the same knowledge, and you can have all the knowledge in the world, but without the understanding or awareness, what have you, doesn't do you much good. So she was honestly, I think, doing the best she could with what she had to work with, and I was a little bit rough, I would say, at the beginning. Plus, she does have a job and yada yada. But that was really touching. Speaking of Esther, I had no clue he was educated like that, dude. And I bet you cannot hear me. You probably can't hear them, what they're saying, or what I'm obviously saying. When I was hollering over them. But honestly, I thought I was gonna fall asleep, and dude, that got me like, pumped up. So I did not fall asleep. I started drawing pictures, and wow, like I saw his talk to Congress or whatever on shapes and the polygons and stuff, but I didn't know all of this. So with that, credit for sure to obviously Terrance, but Straight Talk with Daphne Funny on the record Straight Talk, Daphne Wyn, DAPHNE WYNN. Okay, I very much did enjoy that. When did it come out? About, that was intense. That's not what I was trying to find out, though. 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Alright. Oh god, is that Gypsy Rose? No, that's Selena. Okay, I gotta stop this. Alright, see you later.